If you're planning to travel this winter, let me tell you something first. Bagging an airplane seat is going to be very, very expensive right now. This is the first holiday season without restrictions since the COVID-19 pandemic, so airfares are shooting up like crazy. In fact, in some routes, they are almost double the usual rates. Traditionally, ticket prices have peaked in December because of the holiday season, but this time, airfares are much higher than previous years. Domestic airfares have seen an upward trend with some 40% higher than usual. One of the main reasons for this is the fact that Indians are eager to travel and airlines simply do not have this capacity to meet this growing demand. The second reason is the Indian regulator, that's the DGCA, has approved lesser flights for this winter. Mixed with that, the rising cost of operations are offsetting any gains made by the airlines. By that, what I mean is that a war is raging on in Europe and jet fuel is getting more and more expensive. So basically, there is a rise in demand, there are fewer flights and rising operational costs, all of which means that passengers like you and I will have to shell out more money for those plane seats. In fact, the opposition cornered the government on the rising airfare in the Rajya Sabha today, questioning the ridiculously high prices. Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia responded to this claim. He's saying that rising ticket costs is simply a seasonal phenomenon.
In India, air travelers are facing huge problems, many kind of problems. First one, skyrocketing fare of air travelers. So these airline companies are exploiting the common people in different ways. So they are exploiting the people without any norms and regulations. Here, my question is that in India, some sectors, they are charging for a short journey, they are charging about 25,000 rupees, sir. So here the question is, doesn't the government some sort of regulations is needed to bring a method into this?
I think it's extremely important to understand that the civil aviation sector is a seasonal industry. There are crests and there are troughs. When festive season starts in October, all the way up till February is the high season of civil aviation. You then get into a little bit of a medium lull situation, and then the trough, which is the monsoon season, is really a wipeout season in terms of civil aviation is concerned. So there will be, because of seasonality factors, there will be pricing differences. Point number one. Point number two, sir, we also have to understand that the civil aviation sector has gone through possibly the worst time of any industry in the world during COVID. It was the only industry in which our planes were pretty much on the tarmac for almost 18 to 24 months. And the very fact that we've experienced a V-shaped recovery speaks great volumes of the resoluteness of our carriers and the capability to supply that service to our common man. ATF, which is a very important ingredient as a raw material, air turbine fuel, almost close to about 50% of a carrier's cost structure, has gone up from pre-COVID between 35,000 to 40,000 rupees a kiloliter to today's level of 1,17,000 rupees a kiloliter. So there's been almost a 2.5x jump in the main raw material in your cost structure, which comprises of almost 50%. That too has an effect on fares. And finally, sir, the civil aviation sector functions on what is called as a reservation bucket designator, RBDs, where if you book very far in advance, you will get very low fares. But as the plane keeps filling up, the fares certainly do go up, and that is an international practice that is followed all across the globe.
Let me go across to our guests for a quick chat. Meeta Chakrabarti is a Congress spokesperson joining us on the broadcast, and Ashwini Kakkar is managing partner of In Adventure Partners, someone who represents the travel industry, with us as well. Meeta, the aviation minister has put his point on the floor of the House. He's saying there are multiple reasons why airfares are high right now. This is a seasonal industry, and in any case, airfares are higher in the festive season. So why corner the government on the floor of the House? Are you satisfied with the reply that Mr. Scindia gave on the floor of the House?
Not at all. Firstly, good evening to all your viewers. Sometime back, we have heard Prime Minister Modi say in one of the speeches as how he wants airfare to come down to a level where the Aam Aadmi, a person wearing chappals, should also be able to afford air travel, and how air travel should not be looked at as something of as a thing of luxury anymore. Now, when we have Prime Minister Modi making such a statement in big rallies, are those only jumlas, or did he take into consideration international crude oil price? Did he take into consideration an economic model to back it up? Is his government in the position to actually deliver it to the Aam Aadmi? Is our question. It's a very legitimate question that Congress party is raising today. Now, we have seen in recent times, in August, I was reading a report that the international crude oil price had fallen to a 6-month low. And yet the benefits are not being passed on to the end consumers in the retail market. The logic that is being given, we know that right now India is buying oil from Russia at a discounted price. Geographies like India and China are getting as much as 40% discount from Russia because Russia is facing sanction from so many other countries. Now, despite that discount is not being passed on to the end users. And the reason being given is that there has been a price freeze earlier on, and the oil companies are being given a chance to make profit because they were not given the chance to increase the price rise during the price freeze time, which was done again for election management when we had elections in bigger states like Uttar Pradesh in past. So when you mix up economics with politics, then a lot of political rhetoric sounds empty because they do not have economic model backing it up. And in the long run, the end users, the end consumers always suffer because we have such unprecedented price rise, and now we have to shell out and really pay for it.
Okay. So what you're saying is what the government has said on the floor of the House, what the aviation minister has said on the floor of the House, that is not something that satisfies the opposition.
Absolutely
Ashwini Kakkar, is the government fair in saying, what can we do? This is a seasonal business. Usually November, December are the times when people are traveling, especially after COVID. Everyone wants to get out of where they are. The demand is unusually high. And the prices are bound to go up. And we need to remember that there is a war raging on as well, which is why the jet fuel prices have increased, though that is something that varies from month to month. But Ashwini, go ahead. Is the government right in saying that we can't help it?
Well, thank you, Shreya. All I want to say is that there are a lot of external factors which are playing their part in this price rise. Of course, one of the factors is the price of air turbine fuel. But equally, during the COVID period, a lot of the planes were kind of disused and they were put out of service. For example, the 747 jumbo jet, which used to be the mainstay of a lot of the global airlines, at least, has been completely disbanded now, and no more 747s will be made anymore, and no more of the older planes will be allowed to fly. Similarly, the A380s and a lot of the other planes were disbanded. So with that, there is a shortage of planes globally. And that is leading to an increase in lease rental prices of aircraft. So that is another factor. The third factor is the dollar-rupee parity exchange rate, because all lease rentals are paid in dollar amounts, and so there is a higher cost for the airlines to pay the lease rentals, especially for the planes that are being leased out. Equally, I think during the COVID period, the employees suffered a lot. Employees were on 70%, 60%, 50% of their wages. So the airlines, to compensate them and to get them back to work, have been forced to give slightly higher wages. And obviously, because of the marginal increase in inflation, those factors have also played their part. And I think it's not just one factor which is playing out, but look at the demand side. During COVID, there was hardly any travel. And now people who were locked inside have decided to fly. And there's a huge surge in demand. In fact, twice during this period, the numbers have crossed 4 lakhs per day. I mean, these are also unprecedented numbers. And I think all these factors, when you combine them...
Those are pre-COVID numbers.
Well,
those are pre-COVID numbers. They're not exactly unprecedented, but they are pre-COVID numbers. And yes, there are a factor of...
Yeah.
Yes.
So a
Yes. So the 4
combination
lakhs
of
was
all
the,
these
you know,
factors has led to the price increases.
so the government, there is
I
no
must
role
also
that the
say,
government can play. Can the government, Ashwini Kakkar, cap prices? Or will that be unfair on the aviation industry, which is just beginning to fly after 2 very, very bad years?
I think we also need to bear in mind that that we should allow market forces to play their part, and market forces will play their part, and the customer will benefit. I can assure you. It's just that right now there's a very thin line, a balancing act between making sure that there are no compromises on safety and security, because the airlines have to spend a lot of money on these kind of factors, on regular maintenance of aircraft and those kind of things. And as new airlines come and expand their plane fleet, for example, Akasa has started now, and Akasa's planes will now start to kind of one plane is coming in every month. Similarly, Air India is bringing in 5 planes during the next 5 months. So there's a lot of expansion going on. And as the market forces play themselves out, I think the customer will have a better time, and the fares will really come down. So I don't think that we should get unduly worried
Mr.
about
Kakkar,
this,
so we...
especially in this season, because foreigners come to India, non-resident Indians come to India. There's a lot of pressure on the flights, and I think once this pressure from January 15 to March 15, you will see prices at pretty much lows, not at highs, but at lows.
Okay. Okay, we'll leave it there. So you're saying just wait, let market forces play out. Meeta, I'll give you 20 seconds. But what Mr. Kakkar is saying, there is a point. The last 2 years have been very bad for the aviation industry. It's finally beginning to soar. Yes, prices are high, but eventually things do normalize. And that is exactly what will happen in the next couple of months, if not earlier.
Giving a response that this is a seasonal thing is very lame. Increased demand is good for business. If you are seeing an increased demand and you're not being able to supply to the increased demand, it shows a lack of preparedness as far as the ministry is concerned and the private players are concerned. I would strongly urge that there should be a capping value. Yes, the airline industry has been badly affected by COVID. That's a known fact. But when we are getting discounted oil from Russia, a discount as big as 40%, we would expect some of the benefits to be passed on to the end consumers as well. And the government has to step in and bring in some regulation in order to give some respite to the end consumer.
Meeta and Mr. Kakkar, good to have you on this chat. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed.